I request all the volunteers to be seated.
नमस्ते नमस्ते मैं ठीक हूँ सर या I can hear.
Good to see you, sir.
Huh?
Good to see you. Though we are
Same here, same.
physical, so I understand your difficulties. So
Yeah. But anyway, I look forward. Some other day you'll invite me again.
very soon, very soon.
A very good morning. A very good morning to everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and fellow scholars, a very warm welcome to this plenary session of our college's prestigious conference. It's indeed an honor to stand before you as an anchor for today's session, which bears the entry title IPS, Building, Strengthening and Maintaining Business and Economic Prospects. Today, we have the privilege of our esteemed guest among us, whose insights and expertise will undoubtedly enrich our discussions ahead. We have with us Professor Niti Bhasin. She's professor in Department of Economics, Delhi School of Economics, University of Delhi. We have with us Professor Tushar Tiwari, who is ICS Director, Saraswati ICS Center Director, as well as IQAC Director. And we have our own honorable dear Principal Sir, Professor Naveen Narayankar, with us, who has indeed given us the vision to have such kind of a conference at such a versatile topic, which I was definitely not aware of. Yeah. And also, sorry sir, we also have with us Professor G.P. Sudhakar. He is there in Bangalore. He has connected with us today virtually. He's there, sir. Thank you very much for joining with us today. So we have all the speakers with us. Once again, a very warm welcome to all the dignified speakers over here. So first and foremost, I'll start with our first speaker, Professor G.P. Sudhakar. So G.P. Sudhakar ji is presently virtually present, as I've already told you, with us today. Professor Sudhakar ji is a visiting faculty to Center for Education and Social Studies, Bangalore. He is also the president of National and Rural Education Association, an educational NGO. He has been an accomplished academic administrator for 10 years, with 10 years teaching experience of managing postgraduate business programs and having a proven track record of building new NGOs. He has more than 17 years of teaching experience at these schools, backed by 2 decades of industry experience. His research focus is on Bharatiya management and building its curriculum. He is PhD in management studies from Osmania University, Hyderabad, with a consistent track record of publications in academic, industrial, and his own self-blogs are there. Sir, we welcome you and thank you so very much with us to be joining with us today. Sir has joined us virtually, so we are extending our token of appreciation and felicitation with a virtual bouquet. Sir, please accept our and a virtual bouquet.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I am honored.
Yeah, and we have our college souvenir and other things for the felicitation being kept in a self custody of ours. So we will be looking forward for your physical presence in coming future to give you these things.
Absolutely.
Moving ahead, we have with us Professor Niti Bhasin. He is Professor, Department of Commerce, Delhi School of Economics, University of Delhi. She has a teaching and research experience of about 22 years. A gold medalist in ANSOM University of Delhi. Her key research interest areas are in the area of FDI, Indian financial system, ease of doing business. Professor Bhasin has contributed research papers in the journals of repute, including JVR, that is my dream journal, JVR, MBR, and Journal of International Trade and Economic Development. Regularly writes for the various media platforms. Recently, she has been conferred with the Excellence Award for Teachers in Service by the Honorable VC University of Delhi in recognition of outstanding contribution to research and academic activities. Not only this, she is the co-recipient of Best Business Academic of the Year Award 2011, awarded by the Indian Commerce Association. Please, the applause shall not stop. She has been invited to deliver talks and share her views at various institutions outside India as well. She is one person who has remained, as for me, instrumental for linking the University of Delhi with the foreign international institutions. We welcome you, ma'am, and we are eagerly anticipating your insights and perspective on our chosen theme. Now, may I please request my fellow colleagues, Dr. Himanshi and Priya, to felicitate ma'am on the dais as a token of gratitude. Please applaud me. Guys, don't be miser. The clapping will not stop. Thank you, sir and ma'am. Finally, we have Professor Kusha Tiwari. She's a known name. I think all of us are aware of this name in the college, right? So we have Professor Kusha Tiwari. She is Director IQAC, Saraswati IPS Center of SSC. Ma'am is currently working as a professor, Department of English in Shamlal College, University of Delhi. Professor Kusha is an alumnus from Department of English, University of Delhi. She was awarded PhD in English from Jamia Millia Islamia. She has 25 publications, including research papers in varied reputed journals, books and chapters with Taylor Francis. You might not be able to understand these publications, forums that I am telling you, but believe me, these are very difficult to crack, okay? It's my hair went gray doing it. So madam is still having a black hair, still having such kind of journals and names in her credit. Okay, so her profile includes publications with Taylor Francis, Sage, Bloomsbury, IUP, Book Review, Cambridge Scholar Publications. She's also been organizing convener of 3 major international conferences and 4 national conferences that are funded by ICSSR, UGC, NAC, and Ministry of Women and Child Development. She has been invited to lectures in Southeastern Finland University of Applied Sciences, Finland Turku University of Applied Sciences, University of Lisbon, Portugal, Utkal University, Odisha, and IP University as well. She is also the co-investigator in a major international project funded by CIMO Finland. She is project investigator of major research project from ICSSR and also a research project from AICTE. She is the project coordinator of Unnat Bharat Abhiyan MOE from her college. So, madam, we welcome you. Who better than ma'am would be able to enlighten us on understanding the rich Bharatiya Gyan Parampara. Now, to felicitate ma'am with a token of gratitude, I would like to invite Dr. Manisha and Priyanka, if they can come on the dais and have the privilege of doing the felicitation. Thank you all the dignitaries on the dais. Stepping forward in today's ceremony, I feel privileged to introduce the theme of the conference to all who are sitting here. To set the stage for our deliberations, I would like to begin with the quote by Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay, who once said, both from the national as well as the human standpoint, it has become essential that we think of the principles of Bharatiya culture. And also, a nation is a group of persons who live with a goal, with an idea, a mission, and look upon a particular piece of land as the motherland. If either of the two, the idol and the motherland, is missing, then there is no nation. This quote beautifully encapsulates the essence of our discussion today, where we aim to explore how intellectual property is a key aspect for the economic and business development. The ultimate source in economic development is people. It is people, not capital or raw materials that develop an economy and its business. But today is seeing India quite differently with dynamics of deeply rooted principles of Bharatiya Gyan Parampara. We have already heard Mr. Sanyal yesterday, who we excellently explained the linking of ICS, Indian Knowledge System, into current modalities of business and economic portraits of today's Bharat. It is now time to hear the words of wisdom and enlightenment from our star-studded panel today. It is giving an immense pleasure to first invite our first speaker, Professor Kusha Tiwari, to enlighten us on the theme of our current session. Madam, please. A big round of applause, ma'am. सुमन जी है वहाँ पे आनंद पीपीटी ऑन कर देना Firstly, I would like to welcome Professor Sudhakar personally.
Thank
So
you.
it would be a privilege to hear from you. And I am a little nervous that I'm speaking before you, but I really seek apologies in advance if there is something lacking in what I am going to talk about. Good morning to everyone, all the dignitaries who are present here, and Professor Sudhakar, my colleague and dear students. Thank you for inviting me to this conference as a speaker. Though I'm part of the organizing team myself, but I must thank the Commerce Department specifically for giving me this opportunity. So the conference is primarily concerned with the business and economic perspectives on Saraswati Sindhu civilization, but that is not my core area. So I would like to share my views on Bharatiya Gyan Parampara, because the session itself is on IKS, building, strengthening and maintaining business and economic prospects. So Bharatiya Gyan Parampara is popularly known as IKS, or Indian Knowledge System, and I will try and connect ideas around 4 key points. First is what is IKS, or what is Bharatiya Gyan Parampara. Second, I would talk about how Bharatiya education system before colonization contributed to the continuity of Indian knowledge tradition. And third, why is there a need to know, understand and study about Bharatiya Gyan Parampara? And in the end, I would talk about some basic ideas of trade in Sapta Sindhu or Saraswati Sindhu civilization, and also talk about learnings from it. So what is Indian knowledge tradition or Indian knowledge system? It is a rich tradition of ancient knowledge, wisdom, philosophy, practices that have shaped the cultural and social identity of our nation and people. When we say Indian knowledge system or tradition, we relate to the entire whole comprising of Vedas, Upanishads, epics, Kavyas, Dharmasastras, Smritis, Samhitas, and many more treatises pertaining to different areas and different disciplines, ranging from sciences to social sciences and literature. And we have not been able to bring forth even 1% of that knowledge to the people in their mother tongues or regional languages that they speak and understand in, let alone regional languages. There is a dearth of translations even in Hindi, our national language. So this tradition has been passed on to us both through formal and informal means. When we say formal means, we are talking about manuscripts that have been passed on to us, in diverse fields, ranging from philosophy to sciences to astronomy, astrology, etc. But this tradition is also preserved through informal means, specifically in our religious practices, our family traditions, moral values, and folklore. For example, the stories of Panchtantra even, which were compiled by Pandit Vishnu Sharma around 200 BCE. But some of the stories in Panchtantra have existed since the Rigvedic Kal, and also have been part of Upanishads. So this collection has fables on 5 systems of Niti Shastra, Mitra Bheda, Mitra Labh. I will not pronounce the next 2 terms or 3 terms wrongly, so I'll speak the English version. Acting without thinking, loss of gain, rules and strategies of war and peace as explained using talking animals. Now these stories, and when I was talking about informal means, these stories and these contexts and ideas teach us how to understand people, how to choose reliable and trustworthy friends, and how to meet difficulties and solve problems through tact and wisdom. So that, in a brief, is what our Bharatiya Gyan Parampara is. I would not go in detail, but that's just a brief introduction. Now, moving on to the next aspect, which is how Bharatiya education system before colonization contributed to the continuity of this parampara. The Bharatiya education system before the British came, it focused on the holistic development of the learner, and this framework changed when the British introduced English Education Act in 1835. Bharat already had a well-established system of pathshalas and gurukuls functioning in the country when in England the first formal school was opened around 6th century CE. These institutions, as a great scholar Dharampalji has said in his book A Beautiful Tree, they were the watering holes of the culture of our traditional community. Every village had a school, and the early British scholars, historians, and explorers, when they came to India, they marveled at the legend of 100,000 schools in this country. So the Pathshala system was very robust. At the same time, it was very flexible also, a very flexible system of education. Unlike modern schools, there was no fixed fee. There was no system of separate classes. Learning could happen under a tree, in a temple, or even in the guru's house or home. Fee depended upon the income of the parents, So the wealthy, they paid the fee, while the poor got on a free education. Teaching was oral and curriculum was decided by the gurus according to the learning levels of individual students. And students were not segregated into different classes, rather all students sat together in one place. And the guru interacted separately with separate groups as per their level of learning. Now, this system was flexible to the local needs also. So for example, if there was harvest season in the villages, then and because the children from agricultural families, they would be busy or helping their parents, so there were no classes during the harvest time, and the school or the learning resumed after the harvest was over. So basically the system was designed so well that it suited the local context and the needs of the people. With the advent of the British, these traditional educational institutions declined, and gradually they were replaced by British education system, which was based on factory schooling, providing education providing education which was entirely unbefitting to the Indian menu. And English Education Act passed in 1835, and Macaulay's memorandum on Indian education disdainfully rejected Indian culture and learning as inferior. Thomas Macaulay in 1834 advocated that only select few should be educated, and those select few Indians would be Indians in blood and color, but they would be English in their education, morals, and values. So, and then the education would be passed on to other people through downward filtration theory. So that was the system, that was the mechanism that he had come up with. As a consequence of this, the spread of local cultural heritage and development of vernacular languages and literature in educational institutions suffered a lot and declined significantly. Now, British government or the British colonizers, they dismissed India's diverse culture, diverse languages as social backwardness, and they termed this as social backwardness for their own economic benefit as well as political ambition. So the legacy of colonial education still persists and was or has been visible in minimum changes that have been brought about in the educational system of India till 2020, when we came up with the National Education Policy. Now, this has been most visible. The colonial legacy, the colonial baggage, has been most visible in the cultural prejudices that are portrayed in school textbooks and learning materials. So these, the persisting colonial vision of education has propagated Western cultural impacts, and they still are continuing, which we are trying to overcome and change with the implementation of national education policy now. The third point that I would like to talk about is why is there a need to study IKS or Indian knowledge system. There are three reasons that I have listed down. First is that though Bharatiya Gyan Parampara is definitely our intellectual capital, but it also helps in building economic capital, because knowledge is the most valuable economic currency in the present time. And countries that show superiority of their knowledge system and traditions, they command supremacy in the world. Global IPR regulations, patent laws, they have given knowledge and economic value, which has to be tapped by a country like India, which has such a vast ancient tradition of knowledge in almost all the fields known to mankind. Now, due to intellectual apathy towards Bharatiya Gyan Parampara in our country, we've already lost out on patent claims on various plants and various plants that have been used as Ayurvedic medicine since time immemorial. And if this knowledge is not preserved, then we will not be able to prevent the spillover of our economic value arising out of our ancient knowledge. Now, thus, there is a need to document traditional knowledge, as former CSIR Director Dr. Masulkar has highlighted. The second reason the second need to protect our cultural heritage is to inculcate a sense of pride and rootedness, something that national education policy talks about, and it envisions an education system which is rooted in Indian ethos, that contributes directly to transforming India, that is Bharat, and sustainably develop an equitable and vibrant knowledge society. These are the things that are laid down in as the objectives of national education policy. Now, if there is a sense of pride and rootedness in being Bharatiya, then not only will we work towards preserving our heritage, foremost, we will also understand the threat that looms over what is Bharatiyata. And Bharatiyata is something that we practice on an everyday basis in our lives, in our homes, but we are not confident enough to own it up. And it is the time to own that up. So that's the second reason, in my view, that why there's a need to study IPS of Bharatiya Gyan Parampara. The third important reason is to reclaim knowledge heritage, and this I would like to explain through an example, which is a very recent. There is a recent discussion going on something like this, which is it's a stitch ship, a 9th century stitch ship, that sank off the coast of Sumatra. It was recovered in 1998, and it was believed to be an Arab vessel which was trading with 9th century China. Now, some people have mistakenly also called it the Tang ship, but archaeological maritime experts, however, they have pointed out that the technology to build this ship was Indian, something that we did not pursue as back as 1998. Now, it was Oman that actually embarked on a project to salvage the ship, a joint project with Singapore. And in 2008, they salvaged the ship and they also recreated it. And then that ship was recreated as Jewel of the Muscat and sailed to Singapore, where it is right now put on display. But since there is so much of effort now to reclaim our heritage, our history, our technological advancements, so there are a few aspects that need to be discussed now and which are being discussed. Firstly, this ship has Indian technology involved in it. It was proved when we found that there is a similar ship painting on the walls of Ajanta cave. This is a 5th century painting. The stitching techniques were used in the earliest ships in India. So they used coconut rope and they used fish oil and other adhesives to make the boat waterproofing. And with those waterproof boats and ships, they could sail for long routes over, long journeys to Spice Islands of Southeast Asia, as well as in the west to Oman and Africa. Now, this tradition is still alive in India's Konkan coast, where local fishermen they build their small fishing boats with the same technology. So that actually shows or a reflection of the remnants of that technology. Now, India as a maritime civilization was not taken seriously for a very long time, and we also idea that we were, that we were basically contained in the Indian subcontinent and we never ventured out. Rather, we were quote unquote discovered by the Europeans. Now, the memory of India's ancient seafaring tradition survives in various festivals also. Most notably, I think some might know about that in the annual Bali Jatra in Odisha, which is celebrated on Kartik Purnima, where small paper boats with diyas are lit and on Bay of Bengal. Then in 2nd century CE, Kalinga sailors, sailors from Kalinga had a very robust trade with Sumatra, Bali, Java, and Malaya. And the Indian influence on the ancient culture of these islands is visible even till today. There are older maritime references also. The Saraswati Sindhu seals with ships carved on them have been found. There are terracotta seals with seafaring vessels that have been discovered in West Bengal. And Dholavira and Lothal in Gujarat also contain evidences of ports. Even, when Alexander of Macedonia, he sailed back to Macedonia around 325 BCE, the vessels that he used were actually made in tin. So there are huge historical evidences also of Chola kings, Chola kings controlling the entire Southeast Asian shipping route. Which highlights how the shipbuilding industry was very robust in this part of the world as well. Now, why this becomes important is because recently there is a project that was announced to build a stitched ship using the ancient techniques of building such ships. Now, this is a project which is conceptualized by Mr. Sanjeev Sanyal, our eminent speaker who visited us yesterday. And it's a step towards reclaiming India's maritime legacy. And the stitching on the ship that we are going to design would be done by Babu Shankaran. He's an expert in the technique and he was also part of the team that had recreated the Jewel of Muscat for Oman. Now, India's project would take 22 months and this ship would sail to Bali and then it would come back in 2025 and then it would be showcased in a museum in Harappan site at Lothal. Now, Mr. Sanjeev Sanyal, and he has said this, that, he picked upon this idea of recreating this ship. It was to remind the world and India of our ancient maritime technology, which was fueled by extensive trade and cultural exchanges both in the east and the western part of the world. When our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi gave green signal to this project, he appreciated its long-term benefits. Firstly, it not only fosters a spirit of adventure and challenge, but it also spreads awareness about India's legacy of scientific progress in every sphere and every era. Thirdly, this is also a project that is like projects like Chandrayaan 3 also and Aditya L1 mission. These are these projects that earlier only Western or developed countries used to conceptualize, but no longer. Now even India is venturing into that domain. And maybe also there is also a need to counter the Chinese attempt to posit countries of Southeast Asia as part of its civilizational legacy, completely ignoring the evidence of temples, beliefs, and cultural exchanges that India had with the Indian Ocean coastal nations for a very long time. This is not just a project, as Admiral R. Hari Kumar has said, that it's a step to free our nation from sea blindness in the maritime consciousness, wherein following the footsteps of the government, our citizens take to the seas to reach out to the world, deep commerce, culture, connect on co-prosperity. my presentation, I would talk in the same context about some basic ideas of trade in Saraswati Sindhu civilization. Now, Saraswati Sindhu civilization had flourishing markets and trading activities in cities, in towns, as well as in the western and the eastern part of the world. The Sindhu people, they traded with contemporary civilizations of the Middle East and beyond. And for such trade, they moved to these civilizations both by land and by sea route. They established their shops, even their production units in these cities, far off cities, to sell their home produce and home products. Now the opulence as well as affluence of Sub-Sindhu civilization is built on twin pillars, that is economic growth and great domestic demand as well as huge export demand for their products. Interestingly, the export oriented growth, which we see recently see in countries like China, Japan, and South Korea, basically is the legacy of Sub-Sindhu civilization. The tradesmen of Sub-Sindhu civilization or Saraswati Sindhu civilization, they got hold of that pulse and they contributed to the development of their civilization as back as 2000 BC. This is most visible in the spice route, which is as ancient as maritime trade. It has led to the intermingling of civilizations and it has also shaped the history of modern Asia. Now, around just a brief historical anecdote, and then I'll conclude. Around 4,000 years ago, it was Arab traders who supplied spices to West Asia. They were the ones who were trading with India and Southeast Asia, but trade was very limited at that time. 2,000 years later, when Alexander of Macedonia decided to invade India, and invasions are a bloody affair, but at the same time, invasions also have something important impact, which is the intermingling of civilizations and cultures. So, for example, they brought in fenugreek, from Mediterranean Europe, and now Europe does not hardly produces fenugreek, and India is the largest producer of fenugreek. So herbs came to India and spices went to Europe. For a long time, it was Arab traders who monopolized this spice route, and they took spices to Europe from India and Southeast Asia. And Europeans paid a fortune for these spices. And Arab traders, they had spread rumors about this part of the world so that no other explorer dared to venture out here. And so that is how they monopolized the entire 15,000 kilometers spice route, which was mostly a sea route. Now, around 30 BC, when Romans took over or captured Egypt, they also took control of a lot of ports, specifically the port of Alexandria, and they started trading with India and Southeast Asia directly. So, the Romans, they provided us with glassware, they gave us wine and olive oil, while India gave them spices and ivory. Now, and many cities in southern India, they became massive trade hubs, and India always had an upper hand even at that time because we were exporting more rather than importing. And we can still find Roman coins in the southern cities, which basically are a proof of this flourishing trade. Now, after that, a lot of other partners also joined in. After the fall of Roman Empire, Venice became the center, and Venice, the Arab traders provided spices to Venice, and Venice then transported it to the rest of the Europe. But fast forward to 15th century, when European explorers in search of new worlds explored different new continents, and then thus began the process of colonization and exploitation of India, South Asia, and Southeast Asia. To conclude, this whole spice route put India on the world map. Now in G20 summit, the new project was announced with India and its partners have decided to come together and create a new spice group. Can we conclude? This new spice food features, in the words of a very famous journalist, New India, which has learned from its past and which is excited about its future. Now, so I would wind up with an observation that there is not just preserving, retrieving, and utilizing the rich resources or rich knowledge reservoirs of Bharatiya Gyan Parampara, but there are also lessons to be learned. The geopolitical situation, and this is just an observation because it's not my field, the geopolitical situation is such that the world is now a multipolar world. And any country which is able to tap possibilities with multiple partners has a great role to play in shaping the future of this world. So this is where Bharat, or the role of Bharat, comes in, because he has given a new slogan to the world that Bharat aspires not just to be a Vishwa Guru but also Vishwa Mitra. So the learnings are as important as preservation and taking it forward, taking the Bharatiya Gyan Parampara forward for the mutual benefit, for the betterment of the world. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am, for making us aware IPS so deeply, with the influence of Bharati education system to IPS and ideas on trade with Sub-Sindhu as an important takeaway. Moving ahead with us, we have Professor G.P. Sudhakar. Sir, we are looking forward to enlighten us with your words of wisdom. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. I need some help with screen sharing. Hello?
Suman sir?
1 minute. Co-host. होस्ट बना दिया.
Suman sir, please make G.P. Sudhakar sir as co-host.
Co-host बन गया मैडम.
Can you see my slides?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So, namaste to everybody. First of all, I would like to say thank you to Dr. Rabib Kar. He chose to invite me and have me here today. Greetings to Professor Neeti Basin and Professor Kusha Tiwari. Very fantastic profiles. I don't know where I would kind of compare. I don't want to compare, but then I'm nowhere near their achievements. And I must tell Professor Kusha Tiwari that I didn't steal her slides. Okay, I made them myself, because you might see a lot of them that are common. I must request Dr. Amarpreet Kaur not to kind of write down everything that I say. Some of it is for the record and some is not. Thanks also to Megha Jain ji for the rigorous follow-up and having me here this morning. Yeah, so we'll start by telling you as to what I'm going to talk about. Basically, it's got three parts. IKS and Sapta Sindhu, my understanding. Business in ancient India and sources of Gyan. Sources of Gyan already been discussed a lot, so we'll just mention them. Unique Indian practices from contemporary India, which according to me is also part of our Gyan, because if it is unique and it is Indian, it should be part of our Gyan. And finally, talk about what we can learn from Bharatiya Gyan Parampara and contemporary India as people in the area of commerce and management. So I'm actually not somebody who is in favor of this expression IKS. The topic was given, but then I'm happy to see that everybody is calling it Bharatiya Gyan Parampara. That is how it should be. Now, what is important is, of course, Bharatiya and Gyan, everybody knows. But is there a parampara? Was there a break in this parampara? Was there any continuous transmission, or did the English education kind of create any roadblocks for this transmission? Especially we are discussing in the area of business and management. And my guess, and as I hope to convince you, there is the parampara as far as business is concerned has lived on. Okay, just my understanding of Sapta Sindhu. Yes, for most people it is restricted to some parts of India. But if you were to read some of the material, even from Persia, they are looking at Sapta Sindhu as India, or entire Bharat. So it's not only about one northern part of India. So let's look at some things about management and commerce from the ancient world. And this is where I think a lot of stuff is common with already what has been mentioned by Professor Kusha Tiwari. I have not put it in any specific order. I have just taken 3 or 4 sample areas from ancient India. Okay, so they are just some samples. So bear with me. Some background. This has been discussed a lot. So Professor Madison, he worked for OECD, not for Government of India or Modi, right? So he was able to say that for more than 1,000 years, India had 1/3 or 1/2 of the entire world GDP. Okay, this is a fantastic thing. We should, try to recollect this. Don't forget that India was having 1/3 to 1/2 of the global GDP for more than 1,000 years. It's not a small matter. So we have thousands of years of economic and commercial activity and experience. So we have a large reservoir of knowledge, case studies, best practices in the area of commerce and business. Now I'll just share with you 3, 4 stories. So before I go along, the right side picture, 2 guys. One is Vasco da Gama, the other is a Gujarati pilot. That's what it says. This picture is from the maritime exhibition. Yeah.
आपका स्लाइड शायद नहीं चल पा रहा, आगे पीछे हुआ, it's not moving right.
It is not moving, is it?
Yeah. Now it's good. You can put it now, slide 2. Yeah. Now
Okay. So this picture on the right top is from Maritime Museum in Kochi. It talks about Vasco da Gama, and next to him standing is a Gujarati pilot. So unfortunately, in our school days, we are taught that Vasco da Gama discovered India. Right. The fact of the matter is, so he met some Gujarati businessmen in West Africa, where India was already having a lot of trade. And one of the ship owners, he gave one guy called Kanji Malam. He lent him to bring Vasco da Gama ship. Right. So, and there is also a record to say that Vasco da Gama ship was accompanied by some Gujarati ships, which are much larger than Vasco da Gama ship, and they were all built in this Mandvi port. Second picture is rather the picture of Sadal Putra. You can see he is talking to Mahavira. So Mahavira visited the factory of Sadal Putra just outside of present-day Patna, And that is how he is in the Jain history books. If you see all the Jain literature, you will find mention of Sadalputra. He is the first guy, you can say one of the big brand builders of ancient India. 500 BC is about 3000 years ago. He was having 150 factories. He had his distribution chain across the entire Ganges, selling his material through the Ganges, and then having his shops, 500 shops in various places, right from Hastinapur to West Bengal. He had some 1 crore gold coins, okay, and more than 10,000 cows. This is the kind of guy this Gadapati Sadalputra was. He was one of the sponsors of the Jain Mahavira. Okay. Now, we can talk about his case study for supply chain. We can talk about for manufacturing. A lot of also, when we discuss Shreni, he was the head of the Shreni. So there are a lot of things that we can talk about this case. His product category, obviously in those times, it was clay pots, pottery. Kaundinya, the statue that you see of a lady in front and a man at the back, that is from the first, that is the statue of the first king and queen of Cambodia. So this first king of Cambodia was Kaundinya. He was a merchant. Some people say from Orissa, some people say from Karnataka, doesn't matter. But he was an Indian. He was taking his material to Cambodia, attacked by the Naga princess from there. Then she loses the battle and agrees to marry him. And together they establish the kingdom of Cambodia. Even today, I think 5 or 6 generations after him, the Kaundinyas ruled Cambodia. The last story, Jagat Seth, recent story during the British days. I feel somebody should make a movie about this. This guy funded both East India Company as well as the Sultan of West Bengal in a war. And finally, he is killed for being a traitor. Because he funded the opposition also. Now, he was given this title because he introduced to the Mughal kings the concept of hundi. Mughal kings were having some difficulty, financial difficulty, and he came up and he said that no, this can easily be solved by issuing hundis. And so Mughal kings gave him this title of a Jagat Seth or banker to the world. I'm just giving you, I can go on with stories like this, for maybe a few days. There are so many of such stories. I wanted to give you a quick glimpse. Okay. Madam also mentioned about Rig Veda. Rig Veda is 1700 BCE. So 1700 plus 2023, so many years ago, there was already sea trade. Okay. One of the paragraphs or one of the shlokas talks about how the merchants, rich merchants, send their ships across the ocean. Now, some mention was there about trade routes, but even before we had as we were having the external trade route, there was also an internal trade route. We are talking about Harappan period, again 4,000 years ago. The Ganges was very much used for transportation of products. Okay. And after it's reached a particular port, it was taken by ox cart. So they also had the concept of seals 4,000 years ago. So we are talking about north to south internal route, east to west internal route, because if you wanted to export, you need this as a basis for bringing material to the ports. Madam mentioned spice route. That is 3,000 something years ago. After that, you had the silk route. Then you had the incense route. Of course, the incense route is moving more towards the east than towards the west. And then we had the cotton trade route, latest one, which of course also was used by the British later to directly ship from here to Britain. So what I'm trying to come, okay, that was, I was talking about spice route being 1000 BCE, right? And what happened was, while I was doing this, I suddenly discovered somebody else is doing similar work, and he is talking about trading system 4000 BCE. So just imagine 4000 plus 2, he's talking about 6000 years ago. And he says there was a very good trading route for tin from Vietnam, Burma, right? Which talked about, which actually transported the tin. And he has also got a lot of proof, whether it is in terms of seals. Actually, they have got tin ingots in Israel, which have got markings of the Indus language. Okay, so, right. So we are talking about from Burma to Europe, tin being sold 6000 years ago. Madam also mentioned Dholavira. Now, Dholavira, there is a interesting sign there. They have found, again, this is 5000 years ago. They found a signboard. Okay, so we talk about signages, we talk about advertising and stuff like that. So I found this interesting that 4500 years ago, there was advertising. Of course, what shop this was, there is some discussion still going on because the Indus script is not well deciphered as yet. Some people say this was a shop selling things for the rituals, and some other people say it was a shop selling some things for the metal industry. But anyway, this was an advertisement from 4000 years ago. Again, one of the authors have said that it is the first known dockyard of the world. Okay, 2200 BCE, and it was trading in gems, beads, ornaments. It had a very well planned waterway as well as a seaport or a dockyard so many years ago. Apart from the international trade, trading routes, all of that. Okay, one other concept that is very popular in ancient India is the Sreni concept. Actually, one of the partnership form of organization is even mentioned in the Vedas. But in any case, it is there from 1000 BC. One of the professors from the US, he has written this article, written this book, where he says the Sreni predates the earliest Roman corporations. And in fact, in some other part of the book, he is also comparing the Sreni organization with the US corporation. And he has discovered that the Sreni had qualities very much similar to the Western American corporation, whether you talk about, independent legal entity, you talk about corporate governance, you talk any aspect you look at of a company in the US today and compare it with the Sreni, you will find that the Sreni was better organized. Okay, this is what a US professor Khanna has studied and told us. Okay. Similarly, about accounting. See, we are always, if you, all your textbooks must be crediting somebody, some Italian for discovering double entry bookkeeping. But the Bombay Chartered Accountant Journal, it says Bahi Khata existed in India for a long time. In fact, one of my students did some work on this, and we can go back maybe 1000 years before what they say as double entry bookkeeping. 1,000 years before double entry bookkeeping, there is proof to say that in Gujarat, there were books where they had 4 columns on each side. There is 8 columns books were existing and were being used. Okay, so we are talking about double entry as a very big thing and being invented by Italy. Lot of books, even the Arthashastra has a lot of discussion about accounting process in the government. Okay, we know about the Birlas and others using the Partha system of financial control. So we have our own methods which has been there for a long time. I will skip this for want of time, but I wanted to show this to talk about one of the ways that India does business is community resources. See, we have no problem in sharing community resources. We have a way of, I just want to read one thing here. The Mauryan Empire, they are talking about development of water pricing systems. Just imagine. Okay, they knew about how to price water among the various users. Yeah, so I will quit this, but this is one of the interesting forms of organization we have in India, right? So thanks to Salman Khan, we know about how environmental conservation efforts, right, of the Bishnoi community. But like that, there are many things, even in Karnataka, we have a lot of village tanks. Thousands of years, that water is being shared by the rich and the poor and the small holder, big holder, and for drinking, everything. And there is a entire science of managing this water. Some other aspects of Indian business, old systems, barter system was very much existing. The Saraf for the moneylender system, caravan trade. In fact, there are many books about the caravan trade. The Punjabi Khatris and the caravans, and the South Indian Chettiars and the caravans. So a lot of this is also one of the methods that Indians use of coins. Indians were pioneers in the use of coins. I just mentioned to you, Sadalputra has a crore gold coins, right? So like that, there are many people you come across in history where they talk about the number of gold coins they had. Yeah, first country to get into Ayurvedic trade, even trade fairs and melas. Today we talk about exhibitions. We talk about, expos. Yeah, but we have been having similar things for ages. Kumbh is 2000 plus years old, right? So even in the financial area, there is not only the Hundi system, there are many other financial instruments very unique to India.
Sir, we are running short of time.
Okay, ma'am. I'll take 10 minutes, if you don't mind. Is that okay? Do I have 10 minutes?
So 5 minutes.
Okay.
I'm sorry we are bargaining on this as well.
Yeah. Okay. So what I will do is quickly go through some important slides. Okay. So this is ancient knowledge used currently. This is a Harvard professor who has published a book, rather an article. He says that the linear thinking of strategic management is not useful. We should look at it as in a cyclical, rhythmic way, which is from India. So he talks about Shiva the destroyer. What we said destroyer, we talk about the Laya. That is basically there is a creative destruction, and which is the Indian way of looking at things. So there are some risks about this text. Okay, always we have got as much as we have given. So we should not always be saying India has got everything, right? So there is a danger in doing this. So be mindful that civilizations have given and taken. So if we are having trade with Romans, it also means we borrowed some of their things, right? So talking about contemporary India, I will just share this Arvind Eye case, right? One doctor having 2 doors, one side patient which doesn't pay is coming, another side patient who is paying 800 rupees is coming, get the same treatment for different prices, and neither the doctor nor the rich patient nor the poor patient is complaining. Right? This is an Harvard case. This is very unique to India. This can happen in India. Kumbh Mela, 2000 years, no reported any incidents. Right? Mahindra's ESOP is not option for shares. It is an option for social work. Right? So these are all some Indian very interesting concepts. For lack of time, I have to because I prepared for a little longer talk. Okay. We have lots of Indian models of business, very unique. You won't find it anywhere else. In India, one of the differences that it is a small business is very big in India, and that have got business practices and innovations very unique. Okay, many of the 100-plus-year-old businesses in India are very small and family-owned businesses. Self-employment is the preference of every Indian. Okay, all the CEOs in all these top companies, I don't think it is an accident, right? It is something to do with the values. It is something to do with what they have seen and experienced in India. So what can we learn from India and all the ancient parampara? For example, we can think like sustainability is there right from the Vedas everywhere. And so we like to be in sync with nature. That is an Indian method. So things like leadership, motivation, all these are being learned from Ramayana, Mahabharata. I did a search on Google Scholar for Mahabharata and leadership. There are 24,500 articles, right? If you search maybe on ethics and Mahabharata, you will get 50,000 articles. So a lot of material is already there and more is being produced. One interesting book compares Indian business model with Western business model, right? So important thing is we have got a family orientation, whereas the Western method is individualistic, right? And we believe in community and not risk avoiding. An American journal has published this article. It says the pursuit of shareholder value or always fighting for profit is not a good thing, and Indians are better because they are able to pursue a social mission. Okay, they are able to make extraordinary investments in employees and empower them. This has come from Academy of Management. It is like the Bible or the top journal of management, and they are talking about Indians companies are succeeding, not succeeding despite the fact that they are pursuing a social mission. Okay, they are succeeding precisely because they invest in people. Okay, so this is some collection of recent books which talk about the dangers of pursuing profit. Narayan Murthy is talking about what he calls as compassionate capitalism. Okay. Yeah, this is the last slide. What are the main ideas that management theory has drawn from India? Ancient wisdom, universalism, contextuality in decision making, ethics, the purpose beyond the self, talking about multiple stakeholders, and self-management. So I had to rush through, but I hope I was able to convey some points that were useful to you. I'm happy to come back and speak to you or respond to any questions after this. Thanks again for the wonderful opportunity. Grateful to all my listeners and the host.
Thank you, sir, for making us aware of relevance of ITS and Subsyndu, and also on business and economic practices embedded in the contemporary trade practices. Now it's time to hear the words of wisdom and enlightenment from our star study panel today, Professor Neeti Bhasin. It is giving me immense pleasure to invite Madam on over here to enlighten us for the theme of the current session. Over to you, ma'am. Thank you. Now it is? Yeah. Okay. Good morning to everyone, to the esteemed panelists, to Professor Tiwari, Professor Subhakar, to the principal, Professor Ravika, for inviting me here, and a very good morning to all of you here. Well, it's a pleasure and privilege for me to be here. Twin pleasure, actually. One, because I've been invited as a speaker for this session. Two, because I see a lot of my students who are now faculty members of this college, and that's such an amazing experience. I about me back to the classroom or what, because I've taught a lot of them. And it gives me such immense pleasure to see that now they're contributing to this body of knowledge that we are talking about. And I hope IKS is embedded in your teachings as well. So, and hello to Megha as well, who has been coordinating with me tirelessly for this thing. So when I first got a call from Professor Ruchika about, participating in this panel discussion, my first question to her was, I'm not an expert on IKS. And, that I don't claim to know the Indian knowledge system that well, and I'm no expert there. I deal with international business. But apparently she had some confidence in me that I'll be able to connect IKS to international business, and that's what I worked on. And I hope I'm able to deliver to her expectations. So for me, the Indian knowledge system actually is something which is more of personal interest to me. So it doesn't deal with my professional domain typically, but I have been following it out of my personal interest in the Indian knowledge system because I believe, and as the preceding speakers have already shared, there is a huge treasure which exists out there, which we don't really know much about as of now. So I'm picking up my little pieces from here and there, trying to figure out what this entire knowledge system is all about. And I have been able to gain some knowledge from the preceding speakers as well. I start to, like for instance, when I was getting trained as a yoga instructor, incidentally, that is something also which I have done. So I gained a lot of knowledge about why do we need to do yoga and what is it, what are the various limbs or the pillars on which it exists, and how is it much more than simply a system of physical well-being. Then my other learning came when I recently visited Bangalore for some work, and I got a chance to visit the Satya Sai Foundation and the tremendous work they are doing in terms of free medical education, free hospitals, and Vedic Gurukul system that I could see for myself. I visited one of the schools there. They had an educational institution which works on the Vedic Gurukul system. And I met students of class 8 standard there. So there was a class of around like 30 boys, and I got a chance to interact with them. And I asked them, they had questions for me, I had questions for them, and I talked to them about what is it that their school routine or curriculum is like. And so this 8th class student tells me that the first thing we need to know is when it's Vidya, we have to take care of both Paravidya and Aparavidya. I have just recently got to know about something like this, but those 8th class students knew that this is a foundation of knowledge that they have to work on. So whatever we are doing right now in terms of our formal education system is actually the Aparavidya, as we say in Sanskrit, which basically means all the technicalities, empiricals, objectives, geometry, grammar, physics, chemistry, all this formal body of knowledge that we try to figure out, that's the lower level of knowledge, he told me. And he said Paravidya is a higher level of knowledge. Par meaning existence. So where you try to connect the knowledge to self-realization, self-introspection, to God, to your divine, and try to do some of that self-introspection, that is also an integral part of knowledge. So the clarity of thought, I was spellbound because I don't see that here in any, I mean, in our formal education system, I haven't come across such children. And the kind of holistic development that was happening from the, from the meals that they were having, which are well-rounded nutrition meals, to learning about the Veds, to learning about computers, to learning about artificial intelligence, to also learning about this concept of Par and Apar Vidya. That was an amazing capsule that these children were getting. And that is my beginning of the understanding of the Indian knowledge system. So, it's well documented. The preceding speakers have already told us that we have a huge, vast, ancient literature to be proud of. And a lot of modern science and technology has its roots in India. So, but what we have suffered from all these years is that there was a very systematic decimation of this entire knowledge system when the colonial rule took over. So many of you might have heard also about what Lord Macaulay said when, that the way he said that if you really want to rule India, you have to hit at their education system. That is, where the prosperity lies. And that is exactly what was done. And they appropriated, because they knew that this was a rich knowledge system. So they appropriated what worked for them in business, but very carefully decided to decimate it from the formal education system. How does this take place? If you recall, it's not just about taking things in and out of your syllabus. It's about something which we call as mental colonialism. You are made to believe that what exists in our system is inferior to what exists in the advanced nations as the advanced knowledge system. And we have been, through that stage of mental colonialism even after independence. Even today, post-independence, we got independence, of course, from the colonial rule. But deep down within, a lot of us still believe that what exists in the West is superior to what exists within the country. And that is something which needs to be done away with. So that exercise has already started. We have started documenting our traditional knowledge systems. We have started doing a lot of things to disseminate all this information. But still, all of us have that belief that, our system is much superior than that. We may not be able to embed it. So having said that, so as I was thinking of how do I connect IKS with international business that I deal with, one or two things which I could connect from whatever I have learned, I would like to share it with all of you. So one was about globalization. So because it was business prospects, so I thought globalization probably would be an appropriate thing. So globalization, so far, we all understand, and we have been hearing globalization and it was integrating of our economy with the world economy and so on and so forth. Now, if we look at the way globalization has evolved over a period of time, it is not a sustainable model. So what has actually happened, so when I teach globalization, for example, we talk about globalization of markets, we talk about globalization of production. What is globalization of markets? We are treating the entire market as one. This is what we say. Now, when you treat the entire market as one, you are actually creating a homogeneity of wants, a homogeneous market, basically. And where are these wants coming from? So if you look at globalization today, what kind of needs or wants are getting created? They're all flowing from the Western system of lifestyle, their style of living. Their standard of living is what we need to reach to if we really want to become, let's say, a developed country. Now, if we try to create that homogeneity, keeping in mind the advanced countries of the world, the entire population of Earth can never reach that level because that kind of capital does not exist. Those kind of resources, they don't exist. Which means if you are looking at globalization in this manner, then only a section of the world population would be able to achieve, what you call as a certain standard of living, because our planet's resources don't support that. So therefore, through this kind of globalization, what we are actually doing is we are increasing inequalities. And then when some of you might be teaching globalization, what do we say? That, multinational corporations go to one country because they have got cheaper resources. They come to India because there is a cheaper labor available there, or some other, places. So this entire globalization of production, what are you doing to the country where you're going? You're simply extracting their resources, taking advantage because they're available to you at a cheaper price, and then embed it in your technology and then sell it to the rest of the world. In all of this process, you have not done anything for the global community. It's all about a capitalist notion of profit making. That is where the importance of traditional knowledge systems would come in, including the IKS. Because we don't have to cater to the needs of a certain select section of people who can afford that lifestyle. You look at, you see a lot of indices which you might have heard about, World Happiness Index, Human Development Indicators, a lot of them. They work on tangibles. Okay, a happiness indicator, for example, if a World Happiness Index, you might have heard about it, and every time they will tell you that India scores very low on the World Happiness Index, and then there are other developed countries, Nordic countries, which are always scoring very high on it. And trust me, I've met people from these countries who will vouch for the fact that ours is a much more vibrant country than what they get there. So why is it that India ranks low and those countries rank high? Because the parameters have been defined in such a way that they are trying to tell you that your happiness is dependent upon GDP per capita, parking space that you get, infrastructure that exists, contributions that you are making to registered charities. So generosity is one parameter, for example, in happiness index. Can generosity ever be measured? So if you help out someone just outside your college, let's say you've done an act of generosity, but it's not recorded. When is it recorded? When you contribute to a registered charity somewhere, which is listed. So then you know that you've done an act of generosity. So in a very systematic way, they try to embed in us. Let's see, we scored high in this parameters because of the kind of systems that we have. But we have to dig down deeper. Happiness, I have raised this because I've written a critique on the index once, and I firmly believe that happiness is a very personal thing. And therefore, we cannot say that because there is a certain infrastructure in my country, so I'm happy about it. So this kind of colonialism is existing in a different form, which we should be a little mindful of. So when I was saying globalization of markets, the way it is being done now, what do we need to change about it? We need to change the fact that when I say globalization, it's not just about the fact that I have to earn profits by globalizing markets. It's about the fact that the business models have to be sustainable enough to make sure that the entire global community benefits from it. Now, where does the IKS come? You might have heard, during the G20 presidency, there was a lot of talk about the LIFE approach, which has been propagated by the Prime Minister in COP21. So LIFE is lifestyle for environment. LIFE approach is being propagated by India across the world, which means we need to embed sustainable patterns of lifestyle in our daily living. Why is it? There have been so many summits on climate change. There is so much work being done by international organizations. Governments are spending a lot of money. So much talk and discussion is going on. But when it comes to meeting climate change targets, they are not met. You don't achieve. Carbon emissions are still at a high. Why? Because we have still not brought it down to the community level. So if the government invests a few crores in a renewable energy plant, let's say, that is not going to ensure by itself that you reduce carbon emissions to a certain level. So what India proposes is life approach, which says that let's bring this down to the community level where every member, all of us here, become a little sensitive and aware to the kind of consumption that we are doing. And then offer them alternatives which are more sustainable. An RO which you might be having in your house right now, for example, leads to such excessive wastage of water that when I got to know about it, I was so surprised that, this is what I've got installed at my place. And I'm going to replace it, by the way. So that kind of awareness needs to be brought about. All these ancient knowledge systems that have been shared by the preceding speakers, they talk about these sustainable approaches. Many of you might have visited heritage palaces, for example, Jaipur or wherever other. They never had air conditioners to keep them cool. They had natural ventilating systems which worked well for them at that era. So this is something which we have created for ourselves. Not just we, a certain section which has created as a want for us. Today we can't survive without an AC, that's a different thing. So that is one set of awareness. This was just a small example. Of course, as they have already said, there are so many other things which our knowledge system talks about. That is one thing which needs to be integrated into globalization. And one more, if I have another 5 minutes, I hope. Yeah. And another thing which I was reading, which I thought I'd share with you again, because I deal with foreign relations, international trade, foreign policy, and all of that. So I was reading this theory which was given by Kautilya or Chanakya, which is known as the Mandal theory. And if you anglicize it, it's the Mandala theory, which you'll see in Google. So why I was reading about it is because it talks of foreign policy and the strategy which you should use. So this is just one little example of how IKS is still being used, not just by India, but by a lot of other countries across the world also. And as Professor Bhaker said, it's well documented at various places other than India. That's a separate story. So the theory talks about the position of a country is like in the center of many concentric circles. Chanakya, as we popularly know, Kautilya. So in his book Arthashastra, he talks about this theory and he says the country's position when it comes to foreign policy is like in the middle of many concentric circles, where the concentric circles are actually your neighbors. So your immediate neighbors are your natural enemies. And the neighbors of your immediate neighbors are your natural friends. So then what should we do about it? So if I look at India, and if I look at the bordering countries of India, going by the Mandal theory, they are your natural enemies. And their neighbors in turn are the natural friends. So the strategy says, when you are dealing with your natural enemies, you should try to soften the enmity and you should try to create interdependence. Because the more interdependent you are, the less are the chances of a conflict. Because conflict would be very costly in this case. Now, how do I apply this to trade? And you can see that is happening. So what are we doing? The current Prime Minister is engaging to the moment, the first thing that was done was to integrate with your neighbors first, rather than thinking of Canada, US, and other countries. So, and we have done regional economic integration. FACTA, many of you might already be knowing about. Then we have done arrangements with other, we have engaged with Bangladesh, for example. We said, let's trade with each other, let's use our domestic currency. Let's reduce the dependence on dollar. So when you are trading and you are getting more integrated, you have lessened the chance of a conflict with your natural enemies. And the same is the case with a lot of other neighboring countries. And then when you deal with the neighbors of your neighbors, you have to develop strong alliances there. So that tomorrow if your enemy, we have a few neighbors who are not very friendly with us. So you have an ally who is just next to him, to that country. And for that country, the neighbor is the natural enemy. I hope I have not made it too complicated. So ally with your neighbor's neighbor. So we try doing that. So whether it was Afghanistan, Maldives, Mauritius, just to take a few examples. India Mauritius Tax Treaty is one, famous thing that you might have heard of, and then engaging with Afghanistan in various ways, and then developing routes which are alternatives. So develop those kind of alliances. Now, foreign policy as we see today is a very direct application of that theory which was given by Chanakya. And then there is, of course, there is many more I can share on the bundle theory, but as of now, I thought, this could be a small example for it. So, well, I guess I'm going to sum up now. And I am still on my journey to know more about the Indian knowledge system. It is important for us to know about it. Before I conclude, just one thing, which I talk of because I teach WTO also. There is a concept which is of particular relevance to India, which is biopiracy, which is how the Western countries, because in WTO we have a TRIPS agreement, which is trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights, which says that if I'm using, let's say I use an ingredient, I get a patent over it, and others cannot be allowed to use it. Now, this is being used as an instrument to appropriate things which belong to ancient traditions of India, but the West is trying to claim copyrights over it or intellectual property rights over it. So you might have heard of, starting with the Basmati debate at one point in time, then moving on to turmeric, spices, khadi, and a lot of other things, which they claim that they have a right to produce now because, we have used it and so we have patented it. But that doesn't allow you to use it because it belongs to India and they have been using it for centuries. So simply because a TRIPS agreement has come doesn't in any way tell us that, we don't have a right to use this. So the government is now, IKS has been created and there's a lot of recording of and digitization of IKS, which is a step in the right direction, of course, and we have to be mindful of that. So I guess I hope I have done it within my time limit. And all I would like to say is that, yes, there is a lot that IKS has to offer. We need to reclaim our traditional knowledge system, not just reclaim, we need to disseminate this knowledge as much as possible. And most importantly, we need to be confident and proud of this knowledge system that belongs to us. That is the best way to disseminate this information further. So thank you very much for your patience listening. So ma'am has reaffirmed my confidence. I think we should give a huge round of applause for that. Thank you, ma'am, for making us aware of the relevance of IKS to international business. Madam has taught me, I know I also read somewhere during my PhD on globalization. So my guide told me to refer the literature by Stiglitz of how globalization will work. But Madam has today told me in few words how globalization can work linked to Indian knowledge system. Madam also talked about self-introspection para and apara vidya that we still, have heard in the Gurukul. So thank you, ma'am, for enlightening us with your words of wisdom today. Before we conclude the session, I give the formal vote of thanks. Since Madam has touched upon a topic of Vedic Gurukul Parampara, I would like to chant few words in Sanskrit. Pardon me if I, missed some out somewhere, because it's like long since I have stopped chanting it. So I'll just try, since all my gurus are sitting over here, who I idolize towards to be in future. So I just try. Ananta samsar samudra tara naukaikabhyam Guru Bhakti Dabhyam Vairagya Samraj Pujanabhyam Namo Namah Shri Guru Padukabhyam. Now I just tell you what is the English version of it. So salutations to the sandals of my Guru, which is a bird which helps cross me through the endless ocean of life which endows me with the sense of devotion to my Guru, and by virtue of which I attain the dominance of renunciation. Last but certainly not the least, it has been such an honor to be part of this wonderful conference. On behalf of the college, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed guest, Professor G.P. Sudhakar ji, Professor E.P. Basir, Professor Kusha Tiwari, who spared their valuable time for us today to enlighten us all on such a diverse and a pertinent topic. Special thanks to our principal sir, Conference Director, Professor Ruchika Ramakrishnan, who is there on the dais now, you can see her, and Conference Convener, Dr. Mukta Rohitji. She's been sitting in the pink sari in the front line, who provided us such a platform to share thoughts and words of wisdom. My sincere thanks to all the organizers who handled this event throughout so very well. Please, big round of applause for all of them. And also, certainly not the least, the participants who made this event a memorable one. Finally, I would like to thank all of you present here for making the time to be with us today and helping us make this event a grand success. Thank you one and all. I now request all of you to proceed for your tea in the porch area. Thank you once again. Let's have a group photograph before we proceed. Everyone come please for the photo. Please come on the dais. Sir, please come on the dais, please. Guys, please come back in 10 minutes now. We are running short of time. We are already delayed. So please come back after having your tea in 10 minutes.